In this video, we are going to be creating a Power BI report. We're going to be creating a full-length Power BI report from beginning to end. Slightly different than what we've been doing in the past, slightly different than what you'll normally be able to find out there on the World Wide Web when it comes to finding full-length videos, Power BI tutorial videos. This video, we are going to be taking a balance sheet, an income statement, and the statement of cash flows, and we're going to be automating those financial documents, those financial statements using Power BI. You got month-end close, quarter-end close, year-end close. I'm going to show you how to create a Power BI report so that you will be able to automate those financial documents, financial statements at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, and at the end of the year, so you don't have to do it manually. I want you to like this video. I want you to subscribe to this channel. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Now, I also want you to join my community. I want you to join my community. How do you join my community, you say, T? How do you join my community? So here's the deal. Scan the QR code. Put in your email address, and what does that do? That puts you into the community. Access to our free weekly newsletter. You get access to our job portal, our Power BI job portal. It's only specific to our community, and it's only specific to Power BI jobs. So what does that really tell you? What does that really mean? That means that there are no other portals out there that have these jobs in this particular list. Yeah, these jobs are available in other places, and you will see within our job portal that you can access these jobs in other places. But we've compiled one location that you get access to all of these Power BI jobs, right? Right there in one spot. You get access to the Power BI job portal because you're in the Power BI community. Now, the next thing you get is access to the free webinar. I do a free webinar every Thursday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Listen, I don't offer this anywhere else. You've got to be in the community. I don't put out I don't have a massive link out there that say anybody that wants to come can come join join our webinar. No, only those that are a part of the CTO community can join our webinar every Thursday. So here's the deal. Scan the QR code, and follow the link, put in your email address, and you'll get access to what? The newsletter, the job portal, the webinar. In addition to, I do not free, but I do events around the country. Well, some of the events are free, but I do events around the country throughout the year. You will get access to those events. Live access to the events, and we'll get to build Power BI projects together. You'll get to ask questions, and you'll get to be around a community of people that are just like you in the Power BI industry, or people like you that want to get into the Power BI industry. Now, with that said, I don't want to hold anyone back. If you feel like you're not worthy of being in Power BI because you're not tech savvy, listen. I wasn't highly tech savvy when I got into Power BI, so I guarantee you, if I can do it, you can do it. Anyway, let's jump right into the video. Are you an accounting professional or a finance professional and you want to increase your knowledge in tech? Are you a tech professional and you want to increase your knowledge in business? Today's your lucky day. We're going to be using simulated data of the retail giant Nike, and we're going to be understanding how to create a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow report, all using the simulated data that we have right here in-house that we've created for the retail giant Nike. So again, stick around and let's get to it. So before we get started, here's the deal. The data that we're going to be using today is all simulated data that myself and my team have created that resembles the data that the retail giant Nike would be using or could be using within their industry, within their organization. Again, I want to repeat, this is only simulated data. This is not official data. This is not a Nike sponsored segment. This is not a Nike sponsored video. We're only using simulated data of Nike so that you would be able to understand what type of data we would be speaking of as we are creating in this video. 1, an income statement, 2, a balance sheet, and 3, a cash flow report. So as we have gotten that taken care of, that little house cleaning, let's get busy. Let's get started here into the video. Now, what we've got going here is these are the data sets. We're just reviewing the data that we've created to use to build out this Power BI report. I do want to emphasize, as always, I am not totally sure if I own any stock in Nike or not. It's very likely that I do, because I wear a lot of Nike gear and I tend to buy stock in companies that I spend money with. With that said, again, I'm not sure if I own any stock in Nike, but that has nothing to do with this report. Again, this is not a sponsored segment or a sponsored video by Nike. Now, Mr. Nike, if you're out there and you're listening and you want to be a sponsor of Power of the BI, please feel free to do so. Get in contact with us. But what we're doing here is we're taking the data that we have, taking the tables that we have. We're over in the model view in Power BI. And what we are doing is we are designing our model. As you already know, when we create a Power BI report, the Power BI report it works. Power BI is a data visualization tool, which means we use visuals to tell the story in which we are building the report. Well, of which we are building the report. Of which, I don't know. I think I was asleep that semester in English. I don't remember. Anyway, we're currently, what we're doing here is we're building out the model view of Power BI. As you already know as well, when building a Power BI report, the tables are created, or relationships within the tables are built using the star schema. We tend to like to use one-to-many relationships, many-to-one relationships, or one-to-one relationships when we are creating the star schema within Power BI. Now, with that said, there are cases, I can't remember very many, but I do remember at least one. There are cases where you could be using a many-to-many relationship. If you are new to Power BI, I don't suggest that you use a many-to-many relationship unless you are absolutely certain that you should be using a many-to-many relationship. Otherwise, I always strive to use a one-to-many relationship, vice versa, using a many-to-one relationship, and in some cases, using a one-to-one relationship. You'll see here, we're building out the star schema. It appears that the inventory right now may be at the center of the star. Of course, the star is not going to be an exact, unless we intentionally built out or intentionally created the tables, created the data set to where we would be using one specific table as the center of the star. Typically, there is not going to, the star schema is not going to be perfect, but it will give you a very close scenario of what, or very close visualization of what the center could be. Here it appears that the Nike inventory table is at the center of the star, and we currently have it having a relationship with the products table, the date table, and the stores table. And of course, the date table could have a relationship with several other tables that have that have date columns. Here we are we're attempting to create relationships, and we see that that relationship gave us not necessarily an error, but a caution as to do we want to use the particular column that we were using. And I'm going to say no. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to use there we got a many-to-one relationship going from sales, going from stores table, from the sales table to the stores table. We have a many-to-one relationship. If I have a choice, I would prefer to do a one-to-many relationship. The reason why that initial column, that initial relationship that we just saw had a caution for us was because the column that I was trying to create the relationships with, it was the wrong column. Therefore, that it showed us many-to-one using the sales table to stores table. Then we came back from stores to sales, and we had a caution, had an error flag, or potential error flag. So I just wanted to double check. I went back, double checked, and I saw that the column that I was actually trying to build a relationship with from Nike stores, well, from stores table to sales table, was actually the wrong column. So I went back and created the correct relationship. Here we're trying to create the relationship again. Now we have a date, so we are going to build a relationship from the date table to the marketing table, which will let us know the beginning date that a specific marketing campaign was created. Once we get into the report, you'll see we're not going to be creating visualizations as I normally do, using the column chart, the clustered column, the table, slicers, all of which we could, but given that this is more of a financial segment, an accounting segment, I'm trying to keep this one as close to what the accounting and finance professionals would see, as opposed to just building out a Power BI report. But understand that we can put as many visualizations on the table on a report as we want, just as we normally do. But in this particular case, again, we're not trying to create an operations and a management visualization. We're simply building out a financial accounting report. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I really want those out there in the accounting and finance worlds to really know that you can create a Power BI report using, you can create a Power BI, you can create your income statement visualizations, your financial statements visualizations using Power BI. And I really find it to be very, very helpful, because it actually automates the Power BI. Getting the sound back here. It actually automates the creation of the updating of the financial statements every month, every quarter, actually every day. Anytime that data is updated and you have it either refreshed or automatically refreshing, you don't have to worry about, keeping up with that data every day. Now, I say that loosely because I know you guys out there in accounting and finance, you like to, run your reports, but I also know that you like to do a bunch of pivoting, and with Power BI, that is something that you do not have to do all the time, because you can create those visualizations all within Power BI, and you will be able to see you will be able to see what those different visualizations look like without having to create a pivot in Excel all the time or very often. But again, we're not going to do that here in this report. We're basically going to create an income statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow report. But any of the other reports you will see would be you will be able to see that those reports will be able to be created as well within Power BI. And the update, where I'm going with the updating piece is, I know you guys do a closing every month, every quarter, at the end of the year, and this can really help you in your updates. If you have an accountant assigned to a project or a group of projects or a group of segments within your organization, and they're doing updates every month, every quarter, every end of the year, by you being an accounting professional, you already know what the chart of accounts are. So you'll be able to already automatically understand what it takes in order to build the report. Once you build the report, it's there to stay. It's there to stay. And you can run the numbers however you want to run the numbers, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a lot more accurate. Well, I can say a lot more accurate, but it's going to be a lot faster than just trying to run reports manually as you do every month currently. But neither here nor there. That is what it is. So of course, you already know I like to create a table initially to build out or to start building my Power BI report. So I just took some of the information here and just took one of the tables and brought the data in from that table, not necessarily a particular or specific table, but from that table, and started building out the report, or started to build out the table, just to give me some spatial just get a sense of space of how how much space is going to be needed. For those of you guys that are in tech, if you were in tech and you're trying to get more into, if you're in tech and you're trying to get more into business and understanding the business side of what you're creating, basically what I would say is become familiar with what is in an income statement, because what we're creating right here is we're creating an income statement. Get familiar with what is in the income statement, right? And then once you get familiar with what is in the income statement, what you're then going to be able to do is start building out just an income statement itself, right? Reason why that's important is because for the accounting guys, they're very particular as to, you know, what goes where and how does it go and all of that kind of stuff. Basically what I mean is when you start working with those guys in accounting, I'm just trying to pull my report up here just as we have it on the screen. When you start dealing with the guys in accounting, even though you may have the right information that's on an income statement, you also have to know where does it go on the income statement, because I don't know what I just did there. You need to know where it goes on the income statement, because their eyes are trained to go to line items to see, you know, if this line item is here, if this line item is there. So the assets, they go in a certain location. The liabilities, they go in a certain location. So, you know, and one way to get an idea of what that looks like and where things go is ask for the chart of accounts. It's almost impossible, even if you know what goes on an income statement, you must have the chart of accounts. You must have the chart of accounts. Now, if you're dealing with a small organization, you know, you can probably get away with not asking for the chart of accounts, and you can probably, you know, figure your way into where things may go. I doubt it, but it's not impossible. But when you're dealing with a big organization like this retail giant Nike, you're going to need to know what the chart of accounts are, because the chart of accounts is then going to let you know what goes under income, what goes under expenses, I'll say revenue, what goes in revenue, what goes in expenses. It's gonna get you there. What goes in net revenue? What's going to be considered a cost of goods sold? And then as you're creating your calculations, because you do have to create the calculations. Again, I don't want to scare you off and make you feel like you've got to know all this programming and coding. To be honest, no, you don't. Nah, you really don't have to know all of the coding. You don't have to know all of the calculations, but you do have to know calculations, right? You do have to know, you know, what is it going to take to get net revenue? What is it going to take to get gross profit? What is it going to take to get gross margin, right? And then, like we're going to see here on this report, it's going to be a fairly simple report, but it's going to be kind of complicated depending on, you know, how versed you are in building out a Power BI report. So I kind of say that tongue in cheek or out both sides of my mouth that means the same thing. It's not going to be that terribly it's not going to be that complicated of an income statement, and neither of these financial documents are going to be that terribly complicated as far as financial documents. And it's not going to be too terribly difficult to create tech-wise, but that's going to say that if you're involved, if you're already in tech, or if you're already in business, the financial statement is going to be relatively simple. If you're in tech, the report is going to be relatively simple. But bringing both of those together, you could be confused on the other end. What that means is the tech guy could be confused on the business end, and the business guys can be confused on the tech end. But the goal here is to show you that you guys are working together. And what I want you to do is understand that you can create this financial statement, this income statement that we're creating. So what I'm doing here is, again, I'm just trying to get some space, putting two tables together. One table I created was one visualization that I created was the table visual, and the other visualization that I created was the matrix visual. You can create your financial statements using table visuals, but I don't necessarily I don't necessarily suggest that you use the table visual. I think the matrix visual is the best visual to use when it comes to creating financial statements. Just for the simple fact that you are able to expand and compress each one of the categories, i.e. you can see we have revenue. We may want to hit the plus arrow to see what's under revenue. We may want to expand cost of goods sold to see what items are under, or what elements are under cost of goods sold or included in cost of goods sold. Then we have account IDs. What account IDs are in the account type? So, with that, I think I would prefer to use the matrix visual instead of the table visual, and that's what we're going to be using here. We're going to be using the matrix visual, and basically, in order to make this work using the matrix visual, we have to create an additional table called the orders table, so that we can create a relationship between the items of the table, so that they would order correctly. I.e., we want revenue to be first. We want discount to be second. We want net revenue to be third. We want cost of goods sold to be fourth. We want gross profit to be fifth, and we want gross margin to be sixth. So we have to create an orders table in order to make that work. Let's see here. So now we can see we can expand the revenue, and we can expand it: the revenue, the discount, the net revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, and gross margin. What I'm trying to do now is just trying to get an idea of how much space this visualization actually going to take. Again, because we're using, even though it's a business financial statement, the income statement. What is being created in is an actual visualization, is an actual visual on a Power BI report. Now, you ask, how does it automatically update? So here's the deal. When we bring the data in from wherever we bring the data in from, that data could be coming from SAP, it could be coming from an Excel spreadsheet, it could be coming from a SQL server, wherever that data is coming from. Once we bring the data in, the report knows where that data came from. And because the report knows where the data came from, there's several things that we could do. We could create an automatic refresh, or we can do a manual refresh. In either case, it's going to update. So building out the financial statement is not that terribly complicated. As I said before, it's just a matter of understanding the chart of accounts. Here we are now going to look at building out the balance sheet. Very similar to what we did with the chart of accounts. I mean, not chart of accounts, but very similar to what we did with, what we did with the income statement. We have to know the chart of accounts. If you're not familiar with or understand what is a chart of accounts, I'm going to say Google chart of accounts. I mean, this is not a class on chart of accounts and accounting chart of accounts, but it's just a list of charts and their identification number that they're associated with. Long story short, Google chart of accounts, But as long as you understand the chart of accounts, you have a chart of accounts, you will be able to create the income statement and the balance sheet, as well as when we get over to the cash report, you'll be able to build out the cash report as well. But again, what we used in the income statement was we simply used a matrix. We could use a table, but again, the reason why I like to use the matrix for building out the financial statements is because we can expand and we can compress the different line items, which will allow us to save space when we are not using that space, if that makes any sense to you. And we can, see the details as we expand. We can see the details of each one of the account types. So here in the balance sheet, again, if you are not familiar with what the items are on a balance sheet, I will say Google it or grab an accounting book from your local bookstore or order an accounting book from your local website, whichever one you use to order books from, and get an idea of what goes on a balance sheet and why and where it normally is observed. Balance sheet a little bit different than from an income statement, whereas there are three main components, I believe, three main components of a balance sheet, which would be assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. The assets are typically going to be on the left side. The liabilities are typically going to be on the top right side, and the owner's equity or equity is going to be on the bottom right under liabilities. Of course, the purpose of a balance sheet is for the assets and liabilities and owner's equity to balance each other out. The balance sheet is, I want to say a balance sheet is a snapshot. I want to say the balance sheet is a snapshot. Not necessarily sure. I don't remember, but I think it's a snapshot of a particular moment in time, normally a month or a quarter. But at the end, in any case, it's going to be your assets and your liabilities. And your assets are going to be in the top left, your liabilities are going to be on the top right, and your equity is going to be on the bottom right. What I did here was I built out the matrix for the assets on the left, and then, well, actually, I built out the matrix that included both the assets and the liabilities and the equity. Then what I did was I copied that particular matrix over to the right, and I copied it again down at the right bottom. So basically, I didn't change any of the data, and I didn't change any of the elements that are going to be, or the items that are in the assets or in the liabilities or in the equity. Pretty much, I used the same matrix. Then what I did was I went to the assets matrix, highlighted the asset matrix. Then I went to filters, and I said, hey, I only want to see assets. Then I went over to the matrix that I copied over for the other matrix that I copied over in the top right, and I said, hey, I only want to see liabilities. Then I went to the matrix in the bottom right. Again, they all have the same information. It's just a matter of what we're going to be visualizing. So in the bottom matrix, in the bottom right matrix, I said, hey, I only want to see equity. So that gave me the look and feel of a balance sheet, having the assets, the liabilities, and the equity, not changing anything out, because you know as well as I do, when it comes to changing out information, changing data in anywhere, and they needing to be, if you take any of the elements out and any of the cost out, then you've got to go back, you've got to try to quote unquote balance those different costs against each other, because now this matrix could have the wrong cost, the wrong total. This matrix could have the wrong total. And the way that I did it, putting in building out one matrix and showing and having all assets, liabilities, and equity, and then taking that same matrix and copying it over to the right, and then that same matrix and copying it down to the bottom right, and then saying, hey, the only thing I'm changing here is what I want to see. The only thing that is changing is what's being visualized. So again, the matrix to the left, which is the assets matrix, I filtered it and said, hey, I only want to see the assets. The matrix to the top right, I said, hey, I only want to see liability. So I filtered just liability. And then the matrix on the bottom right, I said, hey, all I want to see is equity. And I filtered just for equity. Now, when we are creating the balance sheet, again, just like with the income statement, you want to make sure your chart, that you have a chart of accounts so that the items on the chart of account that are assets, they are in the assets area. The items that are liabilities, you want them to be in the liability area. The items that are in the equity area, you want them to be in equity. And again, that's just a matter of understanding and knowing what items are to be included in assets, liability, and equity. Let's see here, trying to see if I can find my report. There we go. And I want to go to the balance sheet. So as you can see here, the formatting of a balance sheet is very important, especially when it comes to presenting it for those in the accounting and finance departments. I didn't just place assets to the left, liabilities to the upper right, and equity to the bottom right. This is actually how it's normally shown on a balance sheet. Our friends in accounting and finance, that's what they want to see. They want to see it in the same format as they normally would see it. I'm not using a whole lot of colors and stuff like that. As you saw in the income statement, I didn't use a whole lot of colors. I just used black and white because our friends in accounting and finance, they are very black and white. They're very black and white. They like to see what they like to see, how they like to see it, when they like to see it, and where they like to see it, right? So we're not changing any of that up. We are keeping that right where it is, as far as the type, the look and feel of how they want it. Now, when it comes to the visualization piece and the expansion and the decompression and all that kind of stuff, that is going to be a little bit different, but that is part of the automation process. In addition to, given that this is Power BI, we are going to add a background to it, a background image. This is a Nike a simulated report, so we're going to use some Nike simulated, to give it a Nike simulated report feel. Just understanding that, hey, this is not a Nike report. It's a simulation of a Nike report. This could be any of the major shoe brands and a couple other brands, a couple other type of industries as well. But for the most part, we will call it shoe brands that we're building this report for currently. Let's see here. So now we are we brought in another matrix, and this one is going to be for our cash flows. So now we're building out we're building out the report for our cash flows. So we've got operating activities, investing activities, and finance activities, or operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities when it comes to the items and elements that are on the statement of cash flows or the cash flow report. Again, it's about the chart of accounts. We can't just, I don't like saying can't. We don't just take any item and place it in any area when it comes to the cash flow report, the income statement, or the balance sheet. Basically, the chart of accounts, again, is telling us what items need to go where and in what categories. So we've got account type here, and we've got a description of all of the not all of the items, but we got a description of items that will fall under each one of our account types. Our account types being operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. And let's see here. And basically we can see that our sub-account types are basically have the titles of CF, which is short for cash flow. In the real world, your items will have a numerical value or some type of value that you will be able to associate with under the on the chart of accounts. In this particular case, given that we're just building out a simulated report, we are simply using CF. We're using CF 100, CF as items that would be in as cash flow items. For instance, CF 100, CF 110, CF 120. That's just cash. That's just a description or the name of that particular item. But we just have it associated with a particular item. This could be any name under cash flows. But the primary thing to understand, the primary thing to realize and to remember is that you must have the chart of accounts. Trying to build out any of the income statements, and definitely the three that we've built out so far, the income statement, the balance sheet, and now the cash flows, to try to build out a financial statement report in Power BI without having the chart of accounts is a no-no. That's the first thing you ask for when someone says, hey, we want you to build out a financial statement. Then you can ask, where can I find this information? Where is this data? Where's this data located? Where's this data stored? But unless you know the chart of accounts, if you don't know the chart of accounts, if you don't have the chart of accounts, knowing where the data is doesn't even matter. Trust me. Knowing where the data, not having the chart of accounts, not knowing where the data is, not having the chart of accounts, knowing where the data is almost a waste of time. Almost a waste of time. Really, it is a waste of time. Really. So the first thing you want to ask for is the what? The chart of accounts. All right. So, just get an idea here of the table that is that has our cash flows. In the real world, that information could come from several sources. It could come from SQL Server, Management Studio. It could come from an Oracle database. It could come from Microsoft Excel. It can come from anywhere. Just understand, we brought the table in, and now the table is residing in Power BI inside of the model view. So we're just getting some spacing arranged here, trying to make sure we've got the spacing set according to how we like to see it. And again, this if you just building out financial statements, this looks inside of Power BI. This could look very boring, right? This could look very boring, but it's necessary. I saw that I had some values, some dollar values, excuse me, that were not separated by commas. So I'm just trying to make sure that all of our dollar values are separated by comma. And canvas settings. We're going to bring in a background image. Here we've got an image that is a Nike image. Not necessarily sure. I don't think we're going to use this image because based on the how the income statement is arranged, we would have to do a lot of scrolling to the bottom we have to do a lot of scrolling vertically in order to use the image that we have. As you can see, if we keep expanding, if we expand each one of the account types, it's going to cover a pretty good amount of the page. And by having the shape, we're having the layout of the background as it is right now. Either we're not going to see the background, we're going to either see part of the background, or it's going to look real sloppy trying to look at the Power BI report and have the full, or have as much of the Power BI report, as much of the income statement on the report as we would like. So we will change out this background for a different variation of the background. As you can see here, right now we are able to see the entire income statement. And of course, the income statement is really the most important part of this report, is what the report is all about. Whereas, I've said before, and I like to stick with it, when we create a Power BI report for an organization, we like to have, I think it's a good practice to have the logo in the report, the logo of the company, because that is the most important, I'm gonna say the most important, but that's an important part of marketing for the organization. That is part of their brand, that logo being a part of it. And I like for our Power BI reports to be very closely related to being able to have the functionalities of a website. So that's why I like to put, I like to have the logo on there, but in this particular case, we're not gonna have the logo typically where I would put it in the upper left corner. We don't have the full logo here because we have one of the star players, star endorsers for Nike here. So we're gonna use this as a background image, because we know Nike is huge when it comes to when it comes to branding and marketing. Nike is huge, so we want to, even though it's a simple income statement, cash flow report, and balance sheet, we want to be able to provide Nike with that report, with that brand feel that they're accustomed to. We want, even though it's financial statements, we want it to have that brand. We want it to have that brand identified in the report as well. So that, because we never know, they may be sharing this report with stockholders, they may be sharing this report internally, and we wanted to make it seem like that professional feel for Nike, that shoe giant. Placing the images to the right, again, it's something new for me, but at the same time, it's okay, because again, this is, creating the financial statements is something new. Like I said, something new, but it's a little different, and you don't get as much of the glitz and glamour when it comes to the financial statements as you do when creating other Power BI reports. Before we go any further, I want to ask a favor. I have a book out on Amazon. It is called The Best Idea I Ever Had Right Now. It's not a brand new book. I actually wrote this book some time ago, but it's called The Best Idea I Ever Had Right Now. Go out there and pick it up for me. What is this book about? It's about many of the ideas, many of the businesses that I've started in the past. Trust me, Power BI, YouTube podcasting, this is definitely not my first rodeo, but I've got a book out there called The Best Idea I Ever Had Right Now. It's got a lot of good information in it. It could inspire you to create some new businesses. It could give you some ideas of some pitfalls and some potholes to avoid. if you are looking to create a business and you're jumping in, but not necessarily sure what to do or where to go. But again, go out there and if you don't mind, pick up my book. It's out there on Amazon. Go out there and pick up my book, The Best Idea I Ever Had Right Now. Back to the video. So we have the balance sheet created, the actual structure of the balance sheet created, where we have the assets on the left side, the liabilities on the right, and the equity at the bottom right. So now what we're trying to do now is we're just trying to create some type of format, create some type of spatial arrangement here so that we are able to have a background, I guess pretty much a background image, similar to what we did on the first page with the income statement. It's a little tricky here because I really don't like the way the overlay is coming in with the assets covering part of the image to the left, and then the liabilities and the equity. It's kind of weird how this is coming in. So it's really not that aesthetically pleasing. And of course, I like to have my reports to where, it's got a web type feel. The functionality is kind of a web type functionality, but at the same time, the design around it needs to have a good feel as well. So what I did here in the liability, in the assets visualization, matrix visualization, I just made that background transparent, but the additional background of the row headers and the column headers and the values are still white, which is still giving us that hard square edge look as it overlays on top of the background visuals. And I guess it really could be okay. I may be overthinking this thing, but it's just not what I'm feeling is the best looking feel right now. Just trying to get an idea of how I could really lay this thing out. And even though I did make the background transparent on the assets, even if I moved it over to the left, I really but I really shouldn't make the values or the row headers, column headers, and values, row headers and column headers to be any smaller than what it already is, because they're already, relatively small. I want to say that font probably is 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 font. So just trying to get an idea of what to do here. Coming down to the equity visualization, the matrix visualization of the equity, and creating the transparent background there as well. Now we're going to make the transparent background in the liabilities. And basically what that is actually doing is giving us the appearance of a little bit more real estate when it comes to what the background visual really looks like. So now that actual visualization is only taking up just the amount of space that's inside of that's being utilized in the matrix. There are a couple of things I probably could do here. I could probably keep the background visuals as is. As you can see, the font size that I was using, the text size that I was using, was actually a 10. So, increasing it to 13, we come back and take up a little bit more of the real estate that we took away when we took away the background image of the transparent background. But not too much. As I was about to say, there's some things that we probably could do here. We could probably drop shadow behind each one of the matrix visuals, being the liabilities, assets, and the equity. And then maybe add a border, maybe even give it rounded corners. Some of the things that I normally do on my reports but more so when it's not conflicting with the actual background image. And again, I may be overthinking this thing a little bit much. And here in this visual, I need to spread it out just a little bit so that we don't have to do any scrolling horizontally. Scrolling vertically is okay. Scrolling horizontally kind of bothers me. Here we've got a visual where in the liabilities visual where it is scrolling vertically, but we can stretch it just a little bit so that we don't necessarily have to scroll here either. The equities visual is actually pretty good. It's not that much in there anyway, but it's actually pretty good. So we don't have to worry about doing a whole lot of scrolling on this visual. Just trying to get some idea of what I really want to do here. Creating visual borders, you know, what really is going to make this thing pop. And these are some of the challenges that you could run up on when you are creating Power BI reports and the visualizations, not just, you know, for financial statements, but anytime you're creating a Power BI report and when you're using a background image such as the image that we're using here, you know, you can run up against, you know, what colors really work well with the background image. Can we really place a visualization over the background image? And the answer to that is yes, we can place a visualization anywhere on the page we want to place it. Question is, you know, does it, you know, aesthetically make sense, right? Because placing an image that does not really go well with the actual background, placing a visualization that doesn't really go well with the background image, I mean, nobody really wants to see that. So your users are not really going to use the page. They're going to talk about the page, the whole nine. So I mean, you want to make this thing look as good as possible. And right now, I'm kind of struggling. And this is what happens when. Getting the echo here. This is what happens when you're creating a Power BI report. Sometimes you got to try to figure out, even though you may have the visualizations in that you want to use, even though you may be using all the data that you want to use, and you know that the data and the visualizations are jiving well together. If that look and feel, if that functional look and feel of the page is not working, it's a problem. And right now, you know, I'm really kind of struggling artistically to make this thing work. So we're trying borders on, we're trying borders off. As you can see with the visualization, this visual here, in the liabilities, we've used a drop shadow, so you can kind of see that shadow behind it. It's kind of got like a little 3D effect, kind of on the page, off the page type joint. So that's kind of sweet. I'm kind of digging that a little bit. If I tried to round the corners, the rounded corners would not be the corners of the actual page, that the visual that we're looking at, because we have removed the background and made the background transparent. If we bring the background back in and then we round the corners, we'll see that the visual will have rounded corners, but it'll be rounding based on the background. Here, if we try to round now, it's still going to give us the same square effect as we're seeing. When I say that the square effect, the same square effect of the visual itself, like the liability is built like a square. The asset is built like a square. The equity is built, you know, in the shape of a square based on how the visual is. But if we wanted to round the corners like we've done before, if we want to round the corners, it would be kind of tough to round the corners, given that those rounded corners would be based on the entire visualization and not just on the visuals of the records and the data itself. So just trying to get a feel. Gonna move the assets, see if it really works over here. There's not really a good feel here from a accounting and finance professional perspective, because the asset is normally not in the bottom left of the page. It's typically on the top left, or even covering up the whole left side, depending on how much data is in those records. So that wasn't a real good look, trying to bring that asset down to the bottom left. We're just trying everything here at this point. We're going to get it, though. We're going to get it. But at this point, we're just trying. We're throwing darts, throwing mud at the wall, hoping that it sticks. And sooner or later, you know, it's like, it'll hit you like, I like that. I like that. And this visual is tough, so we're gonna go to the row headers, go to values, you know, what do we wanna do? What do we really wanna change? Do we wanna change the size? Again, going much smaller than the 13 font for the text, it's gonna be tough to see, right? I mean, it's gonna be seeable, but it's gonna be tough to see. So, you know, I'm really kind of stuck on really wanting to keep this 13 font. Do I really want to keep the background image? I do want to have a background image, but you know, is this the correct background image we want to use? Let's try a different background image and see. Same image that we use for the income statement. A lot of times, you know, you kind of want to stick with having backgrounds that are consistent throughout a report. Let me say that a different way. If you have a report that has a background image on it, you might want to have all of the pages with the same background image. Just as we did on the income statement, we are now looking at doing the same thing on the balance sheet. And I'm getting a better feel for how this is looking. Even though we didn't use a drop shadow on the income statement, you know, everything doesn't have to be all images. All the visualizations don't all have to have rounded corners. All visualizations don't have to have drop shadows, right? But this feel here is giving me I'm getting a lot better feel of this particular feel and look than I was with the background image that spread it across the page horizontally. So we now have a pretty good look and feel for the income statement, for the balance sheet, and now over to the statement of cash flows. Given that we used one background for both the income statement and for the balance sheet, we're going to stay consistent and use the same background for each one, given the income statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. So, you know, again, using the background is not something that is mandatory, something that's not pertinent to building out a Power BI report, and definitely not building out a Power BI report for financial statements. The reason why I really felt that it was important, as I said before, to use some type of background for the financial statements is simply because, one, the tennis shoe giant, the sneaker giant that we are working with here, being Nike, they are known for their brand. They're known for their marketing. They probably won't have any, this probably won't be available to the general public. It's not something they're gonna probably publish on their website because, you know, it's just not website information. But it is information that will be shared with certain entities, departments, individuals within their organization, and staying consistent with the Nike branding. You know, even in a financial statement, is pretty big. At least I believe it's pretty big anyway. And as we see here, you know, I had to kind of bring the visualization down just a little bit because we didn't have room for it on the
as high as we had on the cash flow, but the cash flow is a little bit, it looks like it's a little big because as you can tell, there's some room to where we've got to vertically scroll. So we're going to make that just a little bit smaller. Made it a 24 font, which gives us a little bit more room to move our visualization up, our matrix visualization, and then stretch it further down the page. So as we expand each one of the rows in the cash flow report, you know, it looks like looks like all the rows are expanded as far as they will go. Now again, the cash flow report is pretty simple, but it could be a lot more. There could be a lot more involved with the cash flows, just depending on the organization. But this gives you an idea that the cash flow report can be created using a Power BI report, which again would allow you to automate systems. I haven't even gotten into the AI part of, you know, what that really looks like. But, you know, just work with me. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. I'm going to show you how to throw that AI piece into a Power BI report. And it's really going to allow you to be able to create some analysis that's going to be able to, you know, help your company, help you, whomever you're building the Power BI report for. You're going to be able to take that thing to the next level. So as we see, we did create a title for the cash flow report. So, you know, it only makes sense to have a title for the income statement and for the balance sheet. We really wanted to be fairly consistent. And definitely since we went with a consistent background, it only makes sense that we create as much uniformity throughout the report at this point as we can. So here we are just going to create a title, standard title. We don't necessarily have a date. You know, typically with a balance sheet, it's going to give you a snapshot of what's going on at that particular point in time in life of the organization or the department or whatever type of entity you're working with. In this particular case, we're just going to call this thing balance sheet. We're not going to try to get too fancy and give it days and times and stamps and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to call it a balance sheet. What I want to do now is try to stretch this thing out across all of the visualizations horizontally and then center it as we normally would attempt to center a title on a page. This one is a little bit different. One, we tend to have a logo to the left on, you know, many of our reports. In this particular case, we don't have a logo to the left, and we really don't have a logo to the right. So now it's just a matter of really trying to get an understanding of how we want to center it. We see what I'm trying to see here is I want to center everything over the visualizations and not center it via the entire page. So I believe that when we did the centering, or we had the initial centering across both visualizations, I kind of saw the S was right there at the corner of the liabilities and the equities visualization. So what I did was I just went back and I shortened it, and then I lessened the width of that text, and then I said, okay, well, cool. Now let's just manually move the title over. So that's what I was doing when I did this. So you can see the S is right above the liabilities and the equity visualizations, and coming back over to the income statement and going to create an income statement. We can call it an income statement, or we can call it a profit and loss statement. I think those words or those titles are interchangeable when it comes to this particular financial statement. I'm not a finance guru, accounting guru. So, you know, don't shoot me if there is something off about what I just said. Just shoot me a message. Leave a message. Leave it in the comments. I'll read the comments, and we'll take that from there as well. But so now what we're going to do is we are going to create the title. And of course, we don't want that title to scroll vertically. Scrolling horizontally is cool, But for a title, titles really shouldn't have to scroll. This is a pretty simple centering for this title, given that we're only going to center it over the actual income statement. We see that the income statement currently is scrolling horizontally, so we're going to spread this visualization out just a little bit so that it does not scroll horizontally. There's quite a bit of information that is in this document, in this statement, so scrolling vertically is okay. And as we can see, this page or this report is scrolling vertically. So we're getting a pretty good, I think we're getting a pretty good report here now. We've done some formatting, you know, even though we only, in this report, we only use the matrix visual. That is crazy. Some people don't really understand it. You can just use one visual, one specific visual, depending on what you're doing. And in this particular case, the only thing that was required here was the matrix visual. Again, we could have used the table visual. It could have given us very similar view and layout. The only difference is we would not be able to expand or compress. Would that be what we do when we minimize, expand and minimize each one of the rows? Using a table, that data would be static. We would not be able to make any changes. Using a matrix, we get a similar look, but we're able to minimize and we're able to maximize and minimize the records, and which would allow us to save a lot of page real estate, report real estate, and as you can see here, minimizing. Now all we have is the totals for each one of those records. We can do the same thing with the balance sheet. We can minimize, we can minimize, we can minimize, we can minimize, minimize. And again, we minimize and we get the total of the assets. We're gonna do the same thing for the liabilities, and we're gonna do the same thing for the equity. And now you can see we have the appearance of a lot more real estate. But if we went back in and we expanded each one of those records, each one of those categories, each one of those account types, we would be able to do so and not necessarily have a jumbled up page, because it is the way that we designed our report. And we're going to do the same thing here with the cash flow report. We're going to minimize the entire report, and if we wanted to use this report, we could. So once again, I hope you joined. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something here, and thank you for joining in. And I look forward to seeing you win again in the next video.